Hello everybody, JGC Anime here, and today we are going to be reviewing Parallel World Pharmacy, or Isekai Yakyoku. I probably said that wrong, but let's roll with it. So, what is Parallel World Pharmacy? Parallel World Pharmacy is the story about a man who is this famous pharmacist who ends up getting reincarnated into a new world as a young boy named Falma, who decides that because he's reincarnated in this new world with a lot more magic, like it actually has magic in this world, along with all these crazy new powers, he decides to open up a pharmacy of his own due to being born to a rich family where they can... That's not the reason why. He has another reason entirely, which I could talk about in the spoiler section if I remember to do so. But he decides he wants to pursue the dream of opening up a pharmacy in that new parallel world along with the people in his life. So, yeah. That's the basic idea of the show, but I know it's a terrible description, but we're just gonna roll with it. So, and some spoiler-free thoughts. I actually really enjoyed this series. I enjoyed it a lot more than I did Drugstore in Another World, I think it was called, where the story felt secondary and the plot was more on just kind of everyday antics of the main characters, which I didn't hate, but it definitely wasn't that interesting. This one definitely has a bit more of a plot to it. Not like a massive plot. It definitely reminds me a lot of In Another World with My Smartphone, where most of the episodes are more chill, relaxed, with the occasional more serious event happening. And overall, I'd say that I actually had a pretty good time with it. The only real issues I actually have with the series probably lie down in the fact of certain characters and things which I can go into in the spoiler section. And yeah, but for the most part, I actually really enjoyed this anime. It did have its issues, but I thought Falma was an interesting main character. At least at the start, he kind of goes downhill as a main character later on, for me at least. And there's a pretty interesting cast of characters that work with him, such as Eleanor, or Ellen as he calls her, Charlotte, or I believe he calls her Lotte, or Lottie, I don't know. And, you know, he just opens up a pharmacy, and I'm doing a terrible job trying to describe my feelings here. I guess what I'm trying to say is I enjoyed the plot for the most part. There were issues here and there, as I mentioned, where the plot doesn't really feel like Falma is the main character. It definitely runs with like a main character issue where sometimes his personality will clash with the situation, or sometimes the story doesn't really feel like his story. So I'm not really doing a great job describing it, so maybe I should just do the spoiler section because I can't really describe anything without spoiling a bunch of stuff. So we're gonna hop into the spoiler section. Here is a timestamp when the spoiler section will come to its conclusion. If you have seen the series, I recommend sticking around to hear my thoughts, but if you haven't, I recommend skipping to the end. But again, if you have seen it, I'd recommend sticking around. So yeah, I'm gonna go into the spoiler section after I count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so one of the reasons why I say I don't feel like this is Falma's story is the fact that so much attention is driven into other characters, especially to his dad. Falma's dad feels like he has way more character in the show, and I thought that was leading up to something big, but then it ended up being kind of dull because at the end of the season, we're introduced to something called the Black Death. It's some kind of plague is part of history. I don't remember it very well. I thought I learned about it in school, but I can't remember it very well. But there's this thing called the Black Death. It's rumored to be ready to be spread around the kingdom, and Falma's just like, okay, we gotta stop this thing. However, it's also kind of revealed that someone in Falma's dad's past is behind it all. And it gives us a lot more ideas of Falma's father or dad, and it just feels way more about him because he just has more development, especially at the beginning. In the beginning, it's revealed that Falma has been given kind of like a gift from the god of medicine, and it's a dangerous power that no one should know that he has. But his father ends up learning about it and has to grow and accept it. Not sure about what to do with this person that he thought was his son but couldn't be his son. And it's just this really interesting whole dynamic with how he's trying to learn to accept this new version of Falma, and just everything about this story has felt so much more about him, especially with the main villain. While there wasn't much build up to the main villain, who goes by the name of Camus or something, I can't remember, I still felt like Falma's dad had a connection with Camus, and I honestly wish that we got to explore that a bit more, especially with the fact of how the season ends, because I was really excited with the Black Death whole thing. Like, I actually, on episode 11, when they were finally setting up the last few pieces of the puzzle, I was just like, holy crap, this is getting serious. This is like intense. And then after that, into episode 12, Falma defeats Camus and just kind of, it doesn't really explain it. Like, after they have a bunch of flying squirrels, like Camus has a bunch of flying squirrels sent to the city with the Black Death virus, and after that they just say in like summary that it was dealt with without explaining how they found all the squirrels, how they took care of everything. And honestly, it kinda, I guess you could say, doesn't sit right with me, because I felt like we just kind of ended. And what's worse for me is the fact that it doesn't really feel like there are any consequences for Falma. Like, I mentioned this before, that I didn't like Falma towards the end of the story, and that's due to the fact of his type of personality, where he's not a completely unemotional character, but he tends to be way too calm in most situations. Like, I still remember when he was actually pretty scared about losing his sister in this new world, because he lost his sister in his previous world, and he goes to try to save her and ends up opening a new power or a special kind of power that he didn't know he had. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was a really cool thing to show, and I thought, oh wow, Falma actually can show some emotions, because for a majority of the series, he's either looking slightly agitated by others not listening to him, or completely calm, and he usually is calm a majority of the time. And he still remains that way for most of the season. Like, I remember at the very end of the season, I'm gonna call her Lotte because it's easy to remember. Lotte, along with another one of the people who worked under him, known as Cedric, they both get stabbed by Camus, and when they get stabbed, rather than when he sees their bodies lying on the ground, rather than freaking out, being like, oh my gosh, I gotta save them or something, maybe showing a bit more emotion to his character, Falma instead just goes like, all right, I'm gonna just go cure them. Dad, you go distract Camus with your powers. I'm gonna go do this real quick. Like, I wanted him to actually freak out. I wanted to see him get mad. I wanted to see him get angry. The reason I think this is because I was expecting something big, a big turn in the series with its final episode name being something, I think the episode was called like something like the people you can't say or something. Like, it made it sound like somebody was gonna die. And I at first thought it was maybe gonna be like his dad because of his whole thing with Camus, but no, that didn't end up happening, and just there was actually no loss. The only one that couldn't be saved was Camus himself, who Falma kills and defeats. And I just think, why do that? Like, Falma just slowly became less and less human in my eyes as the series went on. They say how he cares about his patients and all that, but I feel like that's all he cares about. He literally states earlier in the season that he sees the people like, at least Lotte, I don't know about Cedric, but Lotte, he said he saw her as like family. So for him to be so calm around her when he freaks out over his sister's risk of drowning, when both are in pretty dire situations with Lotte being poisoned, like multiple layers of poison, I feel like he should be freaking out a lot more than he is. He's so calm about it that I'm dumbfounded by the idea of, like, what the heck he's so chill about. And it kind of irritates me because I don't hate almost emotionless protagonists sometimes. Like Ayano Koji in Classroom of the Elite, I think he's a great character for showing so little emotion. Like, he's just so much fun to watch, and especially to read. I've been reading the light novels for that series and they're great. But just with Falma, as his type of character, I saw him as someone who was kind of in like a generic protagonist role to a certain extent, where he wasn't too emotionless, but he wasn't too emotional either. And I feel like him not actually showing emotion when put into some dire situations felt a little off to me. It's probably just an issue with me myself with the series, but I feel like Falma was kind of like a side character in his own story, with how, as I mentioned before, much his father took the spotlight on multiple different occasions. While Falma still did his thing of curing people because he has medicines that no one else can produce, I just felt like he could have done so much more for the story. which upsets me because I really liked Falma at the beginning of the season. I thought he was a very fun protagonist. I thought the whole story was building up to be something quite interesting. Like, I remember watching the first episode and thinking, wow, I'm actually really enjoying this. And I actually enjoyed a majority of the season. I found episodes like 1 through 8 to be quite entertaining. But then whenever things started to get serious, it always felt a bit harder to take seriously because, well, I don't know, I feel like the series had a lot more it could have done, and I would have liked maybe if like Falma did lose something, so that way he could actually learn to grow as a character. But so far he just doesn't. In terms of growth and power, yeah, he's growing, but in terms of like as a person, he's not really growing, and I honestly don't know how to feel about that. I find it kind of hard since there's so many things that could have been super interesting in this season, but they end up just not exploring them, and overall I couldn't find myself to enjoy it as much as I wanted to. Still, overall, it wasn't a bad anime. I still had a lot of fun. I found the characters to be charming and fun, and even though I wasn't entirely on board with the ending, which actually we'll go into that quickly. When I heard about the Black Death being a threat, when I saw the opening theme, I thought the Black Death was going to be like Camus himself, like he was like a living representation of the Black Death. But instead, it's just that he brought it, and that's it. He just brought the Black Death to the people, which I think is a little less cool because the idea of him being able to like spread the Black Death would have been such a cool plot point that would have made Falma actually struggle a bit and make him actually face a challenge. But in the end, it gave a very unsatisfying ending to me. It felt very mediocre, and it's kind of sad because I actually had such a good time with so much of this anime. But I guess, yeah, that's that. So we're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? It was pretty good. I had a few parts I was not exactly happy about, but overall, I still had a very good time, and I don't regret watching this anime. I found it to be an enjoyable experience, and that's why I'll give Parallel World Pharmacy a 7 out of 10. Needed a bit of work in some areas and missed some of the potential it could have given, but overall, it still wasn't a bad show, and I found it to be a decent watch. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I always welcome new anime fans to the channel. And I don't got much else to say, so I will see you all around. Peace!